Hi guys and welcome to my video. Today I want to talk about the Pfeilstorch, or in English arrow stork, because the first case of it was in Germany. It is officially called the Pfeilstorch, but for simplicity's sake I will be calling it arrow stork throughout the video. And like the name says, this is a stork with an arrow through its neck. I mean, the neck thing isn't in the name, but it's how it is. The first known case of it was in 1822 near the Baltic Sea. They shot a stork, and as it came down they saw, oh well, there's something in its neck, because he had already been shot with an arrow, and the arrow was from Africa. And this was big news back then, because it was the first ever proof of bird migration. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but people were wondering back then, what the heck do birds do in winter? There were multiple theories, including the migration theory. They had also the hibernation theory, in which birds would just curl up in mud and have their own little sphere in which they sleep. Or it was also popular that they would sleep under the Baltic Sea. Or way back when Aristotle lived, to all the way to 1822, it was also believed that birds turn into mice over the winter. Strange. So strange. But that's how it is when you have nothing to explain what's going on. So the bird was then taxidermized and brought to the zoological collection in Rostock, which is where I live and where the clip at the beginning of the video is from. Because from then on, the stork was always displayed there, and of course you can still see it today. The pose in which the stork is in is a bit unnatural, but that's just the way they done things back then, and nobody bothered to change it. So I painted the stork as you can see it in the zoological collection, with the arrow sticking perpendicular through its neck, and this means that the stork was most likely resting when he got shot. Later there were also storks found with arrows which pierced their neck horizontally, which happens when the bird is flying. The reason for that is when the stork is resting, they are in their nest, and this is like really high up. They've got like their big nest really high up in the air, and you can't look into the nest from above. You gotta take a shot in the dark and shoot the nest from below, so that you maybe hit a stork, and then you can climb up to see if you got one. Or if you didn't got one, he would most likely pick you to death when you're up top there. So when the stork is sleeping and the arrow comes from below, it's sticking like perpendicular right up. And when the bird is flying and he gets shot, you gotta throw the arrow or shoot the arrow at an angle, so when it hits the bird, it's more horizontally. So that's how we know what the bird did when he got shot. The second thing is, I asked myself, well, how did you know the arrow was from Africa? Like you were back in 1822, you didn't have like this shooting guns or something. How did you make your arrows? Turns out African arrows were made with ivory for their tips, and no sane European would have ever done that, because ivory was so is still expensive as heck, and just shooting that right through the stork. Can't even think how. Man, poor elephants. Killed to kill other animals. What a nice thing to do. Ivory is this kind of off-white color, a little bit yellowish. I tried to do that in my painting, but didn't work out. It looks more like metal because it went so dark. I also put blood stains all over the arrow and a little on the stork too, so it looks like he's just been shot. On the exhibit itself is no blood, but if you wanted to display something, I wouldn't leave blood stains on it either. Even if there were some in the 1900s something on the stork, and even if there were some blood stains on it, in 1900 and something the stork was restored, so he doesn't look quite as old as he is, and whitening the feathers is a part of that. And I don't think any stain would have survived that. I also added flowers to try and help the composition a bit, because the stork looks a bit like he's falling over, especially with like the position of the legs and stuff. I mean, I changed up the position of the legs in my drawing versus how it is portrayed at the zoological collection. So it looks a little bit more natural. As I said before, I wanted to make it look like he's just got shot. The flowers also make it look a little bit more peaceful to help the nature of the calm stork. And it is a more peaceful scene than it probably was in reality. You just have to imagine. The stork flew thousands of kilometers or miles to his home with an arrow through his neck, and when he got close, he got shot again. And this time for real. That's bad luck. That's just, I can't even. Poor stork. There is also a story of a different stork who also came back from Africa. I don't exactly know when, but it was later, like 1900 something, probably between the world wars. The residents of a village reported seeing a stork with an arrow through his neck. And a few days later, the stork got attacked by other storks. This is just, if animals of the same species see other individuals and they're not quite the same, they're really obsessed and get angry to a point where they attack others. And they teamed up and roughed up the other one real bad. But the stork with the arrow got rid of the arrow, and after the attack was over, people went and searched the place where the attack happened to find the arrow, but they only found like the middle piece, the stick, without the tip, so it wasn't exactly foolproof that the stork really came from Africa, but everything hinted on it. And at first glance, I was like so happy for the stork, yay, he got rid of the arrow. But when you think about it, the arrow was putting pressure on his wound, and when the arrow got pulled out, it probably started bleeding again, and the neck isn't exactly the place where nothing important is, so this wasn't very good. and considering he got attacked too, probably didn't go down too well for the Stork. But if he made it, I'm happy. Against all odds, he's a strong specimen. If he got to make kids after that, they were like super Storchs. I also wanted to leave a short note that I changed my profile picture on YouTube because I made like the cutest sketch in my sketchbook of myself. That I was so happy how that turned out, because normally if I try to draw a picture of myself, I just hate it because I always like try to capture my potato face and then it goes right and I'm just like, that looks so ugly. I want to draw myself prettier than I am. And so I transferred the sketch. I scanned it in, made it a digital drawing. I was so happy how it's turned out. And I had like an epiphany how to draw noses. I always drew them, I don't know how you call it, not the nostrils, but like the extra bit that surrounds the nostrils, like the bit you wiggle with when you wiggle with your nose. That I drew this strangely far away from the nostrils, and in this drawing I connected these lines to the nostrils and it just looked so much better, and I was like, oh my god, what have I done? This beauty, this is great. I mean, it's not the best drawing, I'm still a beginner, but pat on the shoulder for myself. Learned a little bit with this drawing and have like a better looking profile picture than before. Thank you for watching the video. Hope I'll see you next time.